ATV-TALK, the podcast. Sit down with your host, industry professional, Leonard Duncan, as the men and women from the ATV world bring their behind-the-scenes stories to life. Every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And remember, dream big. It could be your story one day.
Brought to you by Take Two Custom Tees, screen printing experience that is dedicated to quality and customer service every time.
Hey, Danny, how are you?
Good. How about yourself, sir?
Good. Hey, everybody. Welcome to ATV-TALK. I'm Leonard Duncan, your host, and I have Danny Ray Duncan, the second, my son, here with me. And we're going to do a little switcheroo on you for this episode. And Danny's going to become the host, and I'm going to be the guest. So, Danny, I'm going to turn the reins over to you and let you run the show here. And go ahead. Fire away, man.
Well, how's it going, guys? Thank you for joining in on the podcast. Thank you for allowing me to be here, Dad. Wow, man, where do I even start? I think this is an amazing sport, an amazing thing that you're doing here with ATV-TALK. But I'd like to start off with how you got into the industry itself.
Well, I've been blessed. I mean, I was born into the ATV industry. My father, Danny Duncan, is one of the founding members of our industry. I mean, they've been members all over the country that were doing things in the ATV industry. But here on the West Coast, the 9110 or the 90 craze that started in 69, my dad was on the forefront of building intake manifolds and fitting big carbs on them and doing big bores and doing all these things that I got to be part of as a young man, a very young man, walking right out the back door into the shop that it all started in, working on a box of carburetors that he gave me a screwdriver and said, "Hey, take them apart and put them back together," as a learning tool. So that happening for me was the beginning of where we are today. And if you'd have told me when I was a kid that I'd be doing this, I would have laughed and said no. And if you ask Danny, my dad, he didn't have the vision that we would be worldwide and have traveled the world working on ATVs, let alone know that they were going to be four-wheelers instead of three-wheelers.
Yeah, I think it is crazy to look at the lineage of our family and see where it all started with Grandpa. And I know that Grandpa is probably the smartest man I've ever met in my entire life. He knows more than he's forgotten more than I'll ever know. What about with racing itself? Like, when did you start with going to the races, building race bikes? How did that evolution go from you working with Grandpa in the garage, tearing down carburetors and putting them back together to where you're at today?
Well, that all starts from the beginning. 4 years old, getting put on a PE 50 and racing your first motorcycle race to as I'm growing up and I want to race, and I'm at the shop by myself at 16 years old, working on my own race motorcycle because Dad says, you want to race it, you got to work on it. And being given the skill set and the training at such a young age and I'm talking before it's being a teenager, learning how to tighten nuts and bolts and how to put things together, and not necessarily engines, but chassis and things like that. Engine teachings didn't happen till I was a little older. And there again, I'm not an engine builder. That's my brother's forte. I can build engines, but I am not an engine builder. But putting chassis together and getting involved in racing, I've done it my whole life. 86, maybe 86, 87. I got a four-wheeler. I bought my first quad. I actually bought one of Lauren's machines from him. Back then we didn't have A-arms. We didn't have all the cool stuff. We just had shocks and pipes and carbs and motor mods, and that's what I bought. And rode that for a number of years and ended up selling it back to Lauren so that he could build a CR500 quad and take it to Europe. But just the knowledge that I've been blessed with in building my own machines for years before I became a mechanic for another individual, that didn't happen until I was into my 20s. And I started helping a local District 38 guy on a CR500. Not a lot, but a little. And then started working with Lauren more and more, working on customers' machines, which, you always have the racing bug. And I had a couple children, so I wasn't racing as much. I got to do a little bit, but I did race some GPs in Southern California and do some of that stuff when you and your sister were little. So I got to build my own machines and make some mistakes there, with letting silencers fall off or break because you didn't put them on correctly. And every mechanic or every bike builder out there has a learning curve of mistakes, and you still do, even as many years as I've been doing it, you still make mistakes. You have to follow your gut instinct, and if there's an issue with a specific part or a specific thing that goes on while you're putting a machine together or before you get to the starting line, if you feel that's an issue, you better check that because it is an issue. And in my life, every time that I've thought that there was a problem and I didn't look at it, that's the part that broke. I don't think I answered your question totally, but working for Duncan Racing gave me certain opportunities that maybe other people didn't have. Having a father that owned the parent company or the beginning company to Duncan Racing and getting to work for him for so many years, maybe I was given advantages that other people didn't get. I love being out in the shop and building a machine. Your greatest form of mental therapy for me is having a bike to build. And you have a pile of parts, you have an objective, you have a goal. Your goal is to build a winner, to take this pile of parts and put it together in such a fashion that it works proficiently and smoothly. And, some of the things I say, I repeat because they're true to my soul. If you've ever watched Days of Thunder and Robert Duvall's sitting on the stool talking to the race car and there's a puddle of coolant under her, and that for true heartfelt guys that really bleed, sweat, and cry over it and love it that much, that's true. When you're putting them together, you talk to them, you feel how they go together. You're building a relationship with that machine. And I know it sounds goofy, and people are laughing when I'm talking, and I can see your eyes rolling a little, Danny. But you've seen it happen, and you've seen me do it, and you had got to experience some of the highs and lows of that. When you put a good one together, they're amazing. They will do things that you never thought possible. When you get one that goes together hard, you have a tough life. I mean, I built a bike for Eichner one time, and I hated that bike. The sister bike that was identical, I loved it because I never had a failure, never had a blip, never had a problem. I mean, you could leave something loose and finish the race and never have an issue. But this other machine, I could do everything perfect and she'd still break or still have a problem, and no matter what I did, I could not make this machine perfect. We tore her down to the frame, rebuilt her, sold her to a customer, a friend customer, and that customer had an amazing career with her with no issues. Go figure, right?
Yeah, it's definitely it's definitely a feeling. I mean, like when you're working on something or just even with certain machines and stuff, when you go to race, because just like Grandpa did to you, you did to me with, if you want to race it, you got to work on it. And, you know, yeah, I mean, I definitely feel you there. What about the riders that you've evolved with? I know Uncle Doug Eichner is your longest rider that you worked with. And obviously, I mean, he started when I was a baby and I call him Uncle Doug. So obviously you two are super close, but other riders and Uncle Doug itself, what about your favorite builds over the years, the specific bikes that you've worked on, that you've built that have won championships, and some of the fun times that you've had, not just working on them, but at the races itself, the different series, the Mickey Thompson, you know, you can talk about that, Best in the Desert, Works. There's so many, Rendezvous.
You know, we can talk about all of them a little. Your Mickey's machines, you know, there's never been a series like that. The closest thing that you could even categorize to Mickey's or get close to Mickey's is TT racing, night TT racing. Daytime TT racing is cool, but gosh, when you race under the lights and you have polish and chrome on the machine, they don't get as dirty as they do in motocross or some of the other forms of racing. So you can make them look pretty, and you can spend hours and hours and hours buffing on them and shining on them like we did for our Mickey's bikes. And, you know, I got to work with some great guys in that era, you know, Don Turk, Mickey's champion, Charlie Shepard, Mark Earhart. They were both champions. That's where I met Gary Denton, you know, for the first time, you know, 8-time national champion. And he's a current national champion. He walks up and shakes my hand like I'm somebody, and I'm just this green kid learning how to work on ATVs with my brother, you know, and guy was a great guy. Mounds of respect for him. I think that's one of the ways, besides the way I was taught by my father to treat people, is, you know, you always stick your hand out. You always treat that person that's on the bottom with respect, because one day you're going to be looking up at them and, or looking eye to eye with them. And when you do that, you I know it's a little off topic, I'm sorry, but you get going. I've been doing this a long time. I've met a lot of people, done a lot of things. Some of your Rendezvous builds, you know, I built a Yamaha for Alessandro Caminini in Italy. We built a 660 Raptor and got first 4-stroke, 5th overall in Rendezvous in 2001, which was quite an accomplishment for a new machine that, you know, I mean, came out that year. We really had no test time. I worked on a Polaris at Rendezvous with Doug Eichner. That was a kind of a nightmare. We had some issues. He got hurt. The 3 bikes that were in our pit, I think one of them finished out of the 3. I pulled Doug and made him retire because he was injured and there was no sense hurting himself anymore. That was one of the last races him and I ever worked together. But you know, I got to be there in 1993 when the first Philip Charles Leisure Duncan Racing victory happened with Doug Eichner and Mark Earhart. That was pretty heroic and amazing. I wasn't even supposed to be there. At the last minute, something came up in my brother's life, and I was handed the plane ticket and said, "Have fun. You know, do what Martin tells you, and you know, take care of it." And I stood on the wall and did the mechanicking that I was told to do. And, you know, it was their team and I was just a guy there to help. And Martin and I worked together on the machine, and he's a pretty smart guy in his own right. I hope to get him on the podcast at some point. But you take all these experiences and you put them all together. And some of my most memorable builds are building machines that, you know, have done crazy, amazing things. I mean, I built a Vegas to Reno bike for 2018 that in my recent memory is probably one of the most memorable, because when you talk to the old guys and, like my dad, and you talk to some other guys, and you just talked about sheer builds and things that these machines did for you as you're rolling them out of the shop. That 2018 bike, that Vegas to Reno bike, when you touched the throttle, the floor vibrated, the walls shook, and she just was perfect. And Josh Rowe took her out and shook her down, brought her back, and I had to fix the chain guide on the front of the swing arm, and he said, "It's perfect. Don't do anything." And we took it to the line, and actually, I do my normal things that I do for them and check it all out, and that night I'm in the truck and I can't sleep. It's 1:30 in the morning. You got to be up at 4 a.m. to start the race in Vegas to Reno. And I got out of the truck, got my headlight on, and took the top plate off and the gas tank. I took the gas tank off and the top plate and disassembled the top of the machine because I thought the cam sprocket was loose. Just about that thing I said in the beginning about if you think there's something wrong and you don't check it, it will be wrong. So I checked everything, retorqued it all, made sure it was all good, put it all back together, gassed it, pushed it over back into the spot, got in the truck and closed my eyes for 15 or 20 minutes before, they hollered at me to get up, which I was still awake. And, it's one of those things when you get jacked up like I do and your emotions are going and you're feeling it. You don't calm down. Sometimes I didn't sleep before races. It's just me, and when that bike left the starting line, she got into the lead by pit 1, and we made a mistake at pit 2 and lost the lead. At pit 3, we were back in the lead and never looked back and just kept gapping the field until we got to the finish line in first and won a championship and set the stage for the current Q1 machine. And it was awesome. I got to work on Doug's Lager Banshee. That was quite an experience all on its own, going from Mickey Thompson to outdoor motocross. That machine was a lot of fun to work with. A lot different than most people. I think it was the best chassis that Lager ever built for that model, the Banshee. There's guys that have ridden them and owned them and could argue it, but it was a pretty phenomenal machine. You go to Mike Sloan's YFZ 450R Yamaha. Wow, that bike didn't like me much. The first one, the second one that got built, there was some controversy in it, and but as I took care of her throughout the year, things started to unfold. The developments, things were happening. You could just feel the change in the air in 2018. Something drastic was going to happen, and that machine on the last day that was used in 2018 performed flawlessly and was perfect. 30 seconds after the race, it wasn't perfect anymore, but once she crossed the finish line, she said, "Okay, I'm done." And but you learn so much working on them and building them, and you have riders that you have success with, you have riders that you don't have success with. I built a bunch of machines for Craig Christie, and we had some really good success in Baja. In 2009, he was the overall Baja champion in the quad class, which was pretty amazing beans that we were in class 24. I don't think he won. I think he won another class 24 championships, but not an overall points championship. But he had some flawless runs with his machines. Had to learn how to make some aluminum heel guards not fail for him because they were bigger guys and they would break things. There was a lot of development in skid plates and things like that. Now we use a plastic chassis skid plate where before we used all aluminum stuff and it made a lot of noise and broke. So the evolution is awesome. Motocross bikes, Doug and I had some Lobos that, the last year that he rode the GNC series that were good. Never, we won Mount Morris in the 250 Pro class, and then won the Open class. That was our memorable day when you go back to back and win it all in both classes. That was a pretty cool day. I could tell you, I don't know where more else I got to go with some of the things and some of the builds. Built some pretty cool customer bikes, that were awesome.
Those Raptor 660, is that the orange one for Grandpa and the chrome one? Those were really, really cool Raptors.
Yeah, they were built. They were built with the blue one that my nephew Alan. I guess he's your cousin, Alan White. He was my partner, and we had a blue 660 Raptor that we raced in Best in the Desert for 2 years. And that was a pretty awesome bike. I really enjoyed that bike because it was fast. We almost won Vegas to Reno, 26 seconds short. When you get beat by a guy like Doug Eichner by 26 seconds at Vegas to Reno, hey buddy, I don't care, you won. Especially
you had to have had a perfect day to come that close to beating Uncle Doug. My ultimate hero and the king of anything on a quad, in my opinion.
Well, there's arguments both ways. He's definitely fast, definitely the man, and that 660 was faster than everything else there that day. We just weren't fast enough when we needed to be. You could pick it apart with a flat tire. You can pick it apart with a filter change. I mean, this is what you're down to when you're complaining about not winning. If I'd have left the gas on a little longer on that turn, hey, we made up 6.5 minutes from pit 13 to the finish line and lost by 26 seconds. Did all we could do at the end of the race. It doesn't really matter. We got second. Hats off to Doug and Mark Spaeth. They got the championship. They won the race. And Alan and I had a memory, and you'll never take that away. That 660, that platform built the other two 660 that you mentioned, the orange one, which we called the pumpkin, and the chrome one, which was chrome and red for Martin Moreno. And, my deal with Martin was if I built him for him, and we got him in a magazine, I had to go on a ride with him. Well, that ride was from Buttercup to Glamis and back on those 660s. And we had a lot of fun. It wasn't as long a trip as everybody thinks it was, because their top speed was in the 90s. They were fast. They were so fast. I don't think they were the quickest machines ever, but in a straight line, when you're cruising along, they were quick. They were fun. They handled not bad.
As a true fan of the sport, I mean, just over the years, I mean, some of the riders that, that have raced. I mean, you got Doug Gust, you got Tim Farr, you can go to Keith Little, Jeremiah Jones. Just as a pure fan of the sport itself, who are some of the guys that you liked to watch race? Not necessarily Duncan guys, just guys that were at the track that you had a relationship with that you just really enjoyed.
Well, some of my favorites to watch. Well, Gary Denton was always a good guy to watch, but he was smooth, so he was kind of boring. He was always usually running near the front, smooth, calculated, didn't make a lot of mistakes, didn't have problems. Was just not fun to watch, but he wasn't making a show. He was winning a race or winning a championship. Travis Spader, I know he rode for Duncan later on in his career, but before he was a Duncan guy, man, that guy was something spectacular. He was as a Duncan guy too, but we're at a TT race in Danville, Virginia, and he's telling everybody at the starting line, you guys might as well just go home because I'm winning. He walked through the whole thing. I mean, you're looking at Doug Gus, Tim Farr, Shane Hitt. I mean, these guys are heroes, just badasses on TT, and he's telling them to go home, and I'm like, do you think that's advisable? And I think I forget there was I don't know if Greg Baker was there that year, and I don't think Charlie Shepard was. This might have happened after Charlie stopped racing and coming back to the Nationals, and I don't think Baker was for whatever reason he was there that day. But they come out of the first turn off the start, and it's Spader all the way gone. Stretches into a big lead, and I don't even think he made it to the halfway point, and a fireball underneath the gas tank, and he parked it. Second place was I forget who. I think it was Shane, and he had the same thing happen, and almost same spot, almost the same type of failure. And I even forgot who won the race. I know Doug got third. Eichner got third. That's all I could tell you. Those types of things. Watching those guys, Shane was spectacular on a TT track. He had it down. He was dialed, and you could always count on it. He was good. His equipment was good. He was fast. Curtis built all of his stuff, so he was fun to watch. But you talk about greats, like Josh Fredericks, just the strong stud guy that he was, and could eat dirt all day long and then pass you at the end, or come through and lead a race, or battle back from a failure. I mean, that guy was fantastic. I mean, he cut his teeth chewing on rocks that Eichner threw at him for a couple of years. So, when you get that lesson and you get that teaching, his training regimen was off the charts, just like Spader's was. Doug Gus, that guy was an animal too. He was burly. All these guys are having shocks and A-arms, and he comes out there with stock shocks and puts it on them, and you're just like, okay, why are we doing all this other work? It was evolution. It was going to happen, and Gus had to, and eventually had to go that route. So, there was just so many phenomenal guys that you can't put them all together. Todd Vescovi, he's passed on, but he was pretty amazing to watch too. He was very talented young man. Danny, there's so many more that I can't even name them all. There's a couple of guys that rode works that their names are slipping by me at this given time. Jeremy Schell came out and rode some. He was always a hoot. He was fast, always getting himself into some kind of trouble.
Remember that race when he rode for us at Lake Elsinore, my first race ever? Well, yeah. He told me, lined me up on the very inside and says, don't shut off until you hit that hay bale and then throw it sideways.
Well, you had Jeremy Schell and Doug Eichner coaching you that day. That was pretty phenomenal. But yeah, I always liked watching Doug ride. I was also biased and prejudiced because that was my guy. I worked from him from 93 to 2007. And that's a long time to spend working on one guy's equipment. I worked on Craig Christie's equipment from, I think, 07 to 12. I think that Mike Sloan, I started working on his stuff somewhere in the 12 to 13 range, so, you just always transition from one to another. I don't have any, I try to put the bad memories in a box and throw them away and keep all the good ones, because, your bad memories, the ones you hold on to, they can just make you negative towards the next build or towards the next encounter. You have to take the positives and the love of the racing and the love of the sport. And that's always what I've tried to do. I'm a huge fan of racing in general, but I'm also a huge fan of the ATV sport. So if there's an ATV race and I can go help somebody, I'm going to go. You know that you spent your whole life going, hey, where's Dad this weekend? We don't know, some dirt ball track somewhere, working on an ATV.
Yeah, I was usually with you.
Well, you got to go a lot, but you didn't get to go all the time. And then after you moved out and I still traveled just as much, even more. And, I've been to places that I can't find on a map, but I've been there. I've been to countries that I don't have stamps in my passport for because there was a job there or a specific moment that we needed to take care of business with one of my clients that were an overseas deal. And you'd fly into a little small airport, do your business, and fly out. It kind of shady sounding, but it's just the way it worked over there. I mean, they didn't check it if you weren't staying.
Yeah, and I mean, we got to do a lot of cool stuff with Raphael. I mean, Raphael was one of those people that you got to go over to a lot of different countries with. And I'm a huge fan of the sport too, as you know, and I'm also biased because my dad and Doug are, I mean, you two are the iconic duo in my mind, and you guys just are, I remember washing Uncle Doug's boots and in Taft and filling the tub full of dirt because it was a mud race, and then we couldn't take a shower the next day. But I mean, just you've done a lot, and I mean, you've won championships over and over and over again, and I've seen the hours that you put in, and not a lot of people, and I mean, I don't know if you got to have love for it to do what you do, and and I mean, me and my sister are completely different. I'm here, I love the sport still, and Juliana doesn't necessarily love the sport as much as I do, but even when you got to go racing, it was always fun. I mean, the Kawasaki 700s that you rode, those big tanks, those were a lot of fun. And, and I just, the love for the sport has to be there in this, I feel like. And if it's not, then you're going to go out and have fun and you'll do it for a little bit. But the amount of hours it takes to win a championship is just insane on both ends, like building in and working out and training and stuff. So
I don't believe that an outsider could even understand what it takes in our sport, because I know that the motorcycle guys work hard. I know that the NASCAR guys work hard. The NASCAR guys got a team, and usually in our sport, there's one guy carrying the tires, putting the motor in, tightening the nuts and bolts, checking the jetting, making sure the shocks are good, doing it all. And, no, we don't service our own shocks. And generally we're not the guy rebuilding the engine. In some cases the mechanics are. I've done some of the own engine work, but I always had one guy to rely on, and that was my brother Morin. Yes, I'm biased. I believe he's the best motor builder, and maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Okay, that's your argument to have. I'm not going to have it with anybody because I am biased. I'm going to pick him. Does that say that Curtis wasn't great? Does that say Mark Baldwin couldn't do his job? No, that's not saying that in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying that I'm biased, and that's my pick.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to be when he's your brother. I mean, there are other guys that we've had this conversation. You have the utmost respect for both Baldwin and Curtis Sparks. I mean, it's hard not to when you look at their resume and their legacy. But not even to get into that. I'm just saying, as a true fan of the sport, I'm very happy that you're doing this because, it needs to be done because people want to hear these stories, and and I know that you raced yourself and stuff, and we can get into that a little bit, but I just wanted to thank you for letting me be a part of this and tell you that I'm really proud that you're doing this.
Well, thank you. And I hope everybody understands I'm doing this because I know I have stories to tell, and I know that every person that I asked to be on the show has a story or something to offer the industry. And maybe they're going to tell a story that some young person's going to hear, and that's going to spark an interest and allow them to get on an ATV and do amazing things in their life. But maybe not. Maybe they're just going to go ride it in the dunes. But it keeps the sport alive, and that's why we're here, and that's what we're doing, and that's what we're trying to do. And we just need to always hold on to that. We do this for love. I never got into this because I knew I was going to make $1 million. Well, I never did. I've made very little money. I worked really hard, spent a lot of time alone, had some things go on in my life because I would prefer to work on ATVs than go do things with family members. Maybe that cost me in the end. Maybe it could, maybe it didn't. Am I going to look back on it when I'm laying on my deathbed and be apologetic for it? Probably not, because I'll probably be pissed because I'll have a project in the garage that needs to be worked on at that given moment that's not going to get finished. So I love the sport. My father's 85 years old, and he still goes out in his workshop. He has motorcycles and cars that he restores. He still builds and works in the engine department with my brother. And he's still there to save me when I have questions or help me when I have questions for guidance on life, not as well life, but hey, how do you get that bolt out? That one's not coming out, and 3 minutes later he hands you the piece and chuckles and walks off, and this guy's 85 years old. He's a wizard.
It goes back to that saying with Grandpa, the guy goes and they have a ship that's an engine's down and they can't get it to work. So they bring in this guy who's been retired for 20 years and he walks over with a hammer and taps the engine and then it starts running and they take off and he sends them a bill for $10,000. And they say, whoa, that's too much. And he says, well, there's $5 for the hammer, $9,995 for where to hit the hammer.
Yeah, I mean,
so
there's something to be said for it. I mean, I've had conversations with riders and other builders, and they've always, guys that have built bikes that maybe never had success or had problems or had needed directional help, and I just tell them, dude, it's just about putting the bolts in it and tightening them correctly. And they tell me, no, it's not. There's something else going on. You're doing something else. And no, I'm not. I'm just putting the bolts in. That's all I'm doing. I prep the machine. I put the bolts in. I torque them to the spec. And I look over the machine. I check my work. I check my parts before they go together. No, I'm not infallible. I am fallible. I've had my fair share of failures and my share of mistakes. Fortunately, most of them have been caught in the shop or in the testing machine before the race. Some haven't, cost us some races, maybe cost us some championships because you make a mistake, and everybody carries that burden, and carrying that burden makes me work harder the next time. We had a gas issue in 2005, 2006. I think it was 2005. We had a dump can issue, a pit mistake that was made by myself. I can't blame anybody else. There were other guys in the pits helping me, but it comes down to the guy that runs the show in the pits, and the gas didn't get in the gas tank, and we got a 2-lap penalty, and went from winning a race to getting 27th place, all in the span of about 5 minutes. You talk about a hard ride home. That was tough. Worked really hard, put our heads down. By round 4, we had a point lead. We had help, but still, we didn't lose our composure. We didn't lose sight of where we were going. We didn't disband the team because the idiot mechanic made a mistake. We just made him work harder, and that was me. And you overcome your mistakes. You recalculate. You fix the deficiencies, and you move on. And that's all you can do. And I worked with some really great people that allowed me to do those things and develop my methods on my own. I don't when it comes to building a race program or building a race machine, my brother has some input. Usually, if I go and ask him questions, but nowadays, um, he'll ask questions and see where the development's at, to see if he thinks I'm going in the right direction. And he's always good to give his 2 cents. And you always got to listen, because he's a very smart guy, and he's been doing it longer than I have, and he's built his fair share of race winning programs and everything. So a lot of people in the modern day world may not know as much about him, because he has kept himself in the background. But you have to have resources, and I have great resources. I still got my dad, I still got my brother, and there's a whole slew of other guys that I can ask. Tom Burba's a super smart guy from Pro Design, and he's a friend of the family, and maybe he is part of the family. You never know. We've been doing things with him for as long as I can remember, back into the early 90s. So there's a lot of history, and there's a lot of things that people don't know. And hopefully that this podcast will bring that out and allow people to understand that these men and women, have things to tell you, that they're the only ones that can say it, because they were the ones that did it. And there was no video. There is no newspaper clipping. There was no camera snapping, because we were most of the time by ourselves in the middle of some desert or in the middle of some racetrack out where there was nobody. There were nobody to tell. And, there's a lot of cool stuff. Maybe we'll have a story time with me one day. I don't know. I don't think I'm as significant as you do. You're my son. You're biased. You lived through some of my stories. I would rather hear Doug Gus tell me how he got into ATV racing than tell anybody how I got into it. Or, sit down with Doug Eichner and have him give the secrets away to Pondezvous. How do you win 7 titles? How do you win 5 works titles in a row? I mean,
the guy's got freaking nerves of steel and balls of, I don't even know. Like, I remember waking up in the morning and I'm nervous, you're nervous, and Uncle Doug's drinking his chocolate milk or having a Pepsi. Like, oh yeah, we're going to go racing today. And I'm going to beat everybody by a minute, but you know what? You're never going to know, because I'm not going to say anything.
And yeah, he'd get off the race and smile and have a Pepsi. And, I only seen him get hot at me a couple times because of mistakes. He had a race one in Taft one time, and the countershaft sprocket fell off within feet of the finish line, and he was so tired that he pushed it across the line. But unfortunately, Josh Fredericks passed him and won the race. Did it ruin our title? No, it closed the title up to made it a little more stressful to the end. But we won the last 2 rounds and opened the gap up so that it really wasn't an issue. But things like that happen, and that's how you build your knowledge to know how long specific parts last or don't last. Is you got to go break a few, and sometimes you can't break them in practice. You have to break them on the racetrack, and that's a shame. And it's a horrible sick feeling when your machine rolls to a stop. It's just like we were in Taft another year, and this is a race that we won. We got protested at the end of the race for radios. Radios were illegal. We didn't have any radios. Todd Hunt was my helper friend. He'd come to all the races. His daughter raced, Katie, and she was a phenom for a few years, winning a lot of races, a little kid. And Todd would always help us in the pits. He would help us set up. He would help us tear down. He would change tires. He would do whatever I needed. The guy was awesome, just awesome. And I don't talk to him much now today, but I could call him right now and probably he'd show up and the next day going, "What do you need?" He's that kind of guy. He's just awesome. And I said that over and over again, but I gave him some verbal information and some hand signs. and so that I would know what needed to be done and when. And he gave me some signals from the wall. If you remember Taft, there was a wall. So we were in the pits behind the wall and we couldn't see the race course. We couldn't see what was going on. So Todd's on the wall giving me hand signals and verbal, information. And he gives me the signal for the tire. And I knew that we had a flat and we had a small marginal lead. So when the bike came in, we had the tire sitting there. Someone was in the pits to help me lift the machine. We gassed the machine, put the tire on, and dropped it back on its wheels and never lost the lead. We lost our margin of lead, our distance. I mean, now it was nuts to butts, but it was a great race. Doug put the lap down afterwards, after they came out of the pits that next lap. He put time on Josh, just because he put his head down and really charged hard. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was the end. They went one lap, maybe two laps to the finish. And we're all sitting around at the truck, just shaking our heads. And Sean Reddish comes over and he's asking us questions. And I said, Sean, here's my cell phone. Doug handed his cell phone over and we went through the box van and he asked me some questions and looked in the bins, because we had a bunch of parts bins in there with all kinds of extras and stuff, and checked our gear bags. And he goes, no radios. And I go, dude, there's no radios. And he goes, I don't want to know how you knew. And he says, but you are being protested. And I go, that's great. And I said, we didn't do anything wrong. We didn't cheat. You didn't tell us we couldn't do what we did, and it's not in the rules, and it wasn't illegal, because you weren't supposed to run across the track. So I couldn't have Todd run back and forth. I had to leave him over there, and he was in that spot the whole day, the whole race. And it was unfortunate that we got protested, and well, it wasn't unfortunate. It was. I would have done the same thing if I was in the reverse side. It was just when you're not cheating, and you move on. I mean, other things have happened to other riders in the series where they got caught cheating and they were disqualified, or there were penalties given because when you break the rules, you break the rules, And I think that in works, some of the rules that are in there are there because of things that I either complained about to the point where they got tired of listening to me, or they understood that there needed to be some clarification that if, they put that white line there and you go over that line when you're pitting your guy, it's a safety issue and there needs to be a penalty for it. So it never ding. I never got bit on that one because I was always pretty safe, and we really watched, crossing that line. I yelled at more than one guy for crossing the line. Brian Fuller, thinking that it's not a thing. It's a thing. You're going to get 2 minutes for it. So don't cross
that. And your studs.
Well, that's a whole other
mud.
We're in Washougal in Doug's home track, and it's pretty awesome place to race, but it's muddy and slick and raining, and we go on Saturday, we go home, and I can't take credit for this. I have to take credit for the fight that ensued with the rule book and with Sean and the other riders, but when it wasn't really a fist fight. It wasn't a fight like that. It was a verbal fight, but we had to stand our ground. But Doug had the idea, since we couldn't get studs for the tire and we couldn't stud it correctly, we put sheet metal screws or self-tapping screws in there with the hex head on them, and we cut the ends off and thread them down into the tire so they wouldn't poke through the tire. So anybody that didn't know what we were doing wouldn't have known that you had to cut the end of the self-tapper off to get it in the tire. So we stud all these tires that night, and everybody knew something was up because we got to the track early. The bike was in the trailer. We were at a friend's of Doug's, Kevin. We did it in his garage. But I prepped the bike that night, and then we put the tires on. And that morning, I always put the bike out on display, in front of the trailer and, show it off, number one. You do that. Well, there's no number one bike out, and everybody there knows something's up. So 30 minutes before we go to race, I rolled it out, and the crowd swarmed. The rumbles through the pits happen. Sean Reddish instantly comes over. What's going on, man? At this point, we have a break in the rain. It's sunny. It's clear. It's nice. There's a motorcycle race going on, and Sean whispers in my ear, "You're really not going to do this, are you?" And I go, "Yeah, we really are going to do this. It doesn't say we can't. And unless you force the issue and say we can't, then we're going to have a problem between us, you and I. Because if the rules say don't say I can't do it, that means I can do it, and there's nothing you can do about it." And he was sweating bullets because he had to go. We had a riders meeting, and Brandon Brown was upset, and a couple other guys were upset. It's good. Stud's going to come out and poke in my eye, and you got goggles on, dude. I can shoot you with a BB gun and not break your goggle lens. So come on.
And they're not going to last that long. You know what I mean? Doug's going to be so far in front of him, it doesn't matter.
Well,
Sorry, that was a little cocky. I shouldn't have said that, but I just...
The owner of the track was there, and he goes, "We run studded tire races here all the time, so what's the deal?" So that being said, we got to run studs. You can't, now it's in the rule book, you can't run studs anywhere ever. So, you make the rules as they come. It was a fun story, worked out for us. It started raining before the race. Doug was first pick. The only pick on the gate that was dry is the one that Doug picked. And when I say dry, it was still wet. It was just not underwater. Everybody else started underwater, and their trail to the first turn was underwater. Doug's was above ground, dry, all the way to the first turn. He was first through the first turn and never looked back. Josh, unfortunately, had 3 flat tires, and was like 2.5 minutes back, or a minute and a half back at the end of the race. Maybe Doug could have had a better lead if he would have pushed harder, but he didn't have to. He didn't need to. He got to have a good race and take it easy, and had a lot of fun doing it. And the story in his podcast about getting his buddy to wipe his ass, that was that day. And I have a picture somewhere in my archives of Doug, this big brown blob in front of the white Duncan trailer and the blue awning, and everybody standing around, and all their bright colors are showing, and Doug's just this brown blob.
Yeah, there's some definitely some fun times. It's hard to fit them all into a segment. I mean, I can sit here and talk to you for hours on end on this, and we'll probably have to do another one just to fit in just your racing and some other stuff. But unfortunately, I have a newborn baby, and I got 2 other kids, and so I can hear my name being called by my son. So, well,
everybody, I wanted to thank you for listening to ATV Talk. Danny, thank you for spending the time with us today to make this episode happen. I did this reluctantly. I was kind of pushed into it by my team to let everybody know who I am. I know that there are some people out there in the industry that do know who I am and know that I've been around for a long time. But I'm Leonard Duncan, your host of ATV Talk, a huge fan of the industry. My son, Danny, he was your host today in interviewing me and talking with me. And we thank you very much. And from our family to yours, stay safe. And we love you all. Thank you very much.
The team here at ATV Talk would love your feedback. Please email us at hello@atvtalkpodcast.com.
Duncan Duncan Technologies International. More than 33 years in the industry building racing programs and ATVs around the world. We build winners.
Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode. If you did, don't forget to rate us on all available platforms and share us with your loved ones. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook for more ATV Talk news. See you next time.